कादिविदितं चत्तन्तं दीनौ चरौ गोपी भावरसामृता
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, all glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda, all glories to the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It was a very auspicious week that it was on the 14th that there was Gaur Purnima festival in Mayapur, and we celebrated that event all throughout the world in our different small temples. Our effort is to open up branch offices to the PDA Hare Krishna Society, which will be places where people that are serious about spiritual life can associate and participate in our programs. Like, for example, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, and that's beautiful tilak you have on, by the way. Very nice. I can't ever see to get my tilak really good like yours, but anyway. I suggested to our Prabhu in Orville, California, yes, Ron Singh. I saw some nice pictures of his development of his center. He bought a YMCA, and here at that YMCA, he's converted it into a center, a Hare Krishna Society Center, PDA Center, and there he's planning to develop a program or programs for people in that area and for people who are interested. By the way, if anybody is interested in looking to move to California and be a part of his program, please be in touch with him and discuss the details with him, because he's looking for help, of course. But getting back to what I was saying, he's setting up a program, a weekly program, and I suggested to him that he do this. Get a big screen TV, as big as he wants, say a 75-inch, and promote our weekly classes on, by the way, everyone, it's switching to Wednesday from Thursday. Okay, so next week, the invitation will come out by email for Wednesday, and that'll be 8 o'clock, that'll be 6 o'clock Yotapek time, 8 o'clock Eastern time, and 5 o'clock Yaśodā time. So the classes, that'll be Wednesday. But I suggested do this. Make an advertisement, invite people to come over and have them watch the show on the screen on Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And in this way, create a program around these programs. And after, serve prasadam or have a kirtan, whatever he decides to do. And then on Monday, he can have a program, a Krishna book reading, and a kirtan on Tuesday. And like that, fill the week up with spiritual activities centered around Śrīla Prabhupada, because Prabhupada, our guru, has been minimized. This is unfortunate. And I have Krishna Katha. I was just mentioning yesterday how there was a program at Bhaktivedanta Manor in England, and there were only about 6 or 7 Prabhupada disciples there to celebrate Prabhupada's appearance in America and his mission. Because they're focused on other things, on the new guru system that they've manufactured and concocted. And that's a very serious thing, because we have been talking about the Vani incarnation and how Prabhupada is still living with us in sound vibration. But they don't see that. They think it's all Vapu. It's all about a person. So they're minimizing the transcendental process of hearing from the pure devotee. Very serious offense. And not only is it an offense, Rochisha Devi Dasi, there is no potency in it. No. Because the disciplic succession is the method by which we become transcendentally enlightened through spiritual sound. And we've talked about that over and over again, because we stress it as the means to get out of this material state of illusion that we are all in. It's a medicine. But when they change these processes, manufacture them, just like, for example, and I mentioned it yesterday, I saw a video, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, of them having a sannyas initiation somewhere, maybe in Mayapur, and all kinds of young men getting the danda and the saffron robes and taking up the so-called renounced order of life, just like hundreds of people have done that in the past, and for whatever reason, they've given it up. Actually, it is forbidden by Śrīla Prabhupāda to do such a thing because of so many fall downs that took place even during his presence. So many people coming forward, pretending, posturing, posing to be renounced, to be so elevated, but then actually so still contaminated by material desire, and therefore they give up the sannyas robes and take up grihasta or whatever else. Okay, that's okay. And Prabhupada didn't mind that, Michael. He basically, we're not concerned about what ashram you're in. We're concerned about how you practice sadhana bhakti in association with bona fide disciples, and hear the philosophy in the Vani incarnation from His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, which, Rochisha Devi Dasi, has potency. There's a difference between impotent and potent. And the potent process of Krishna consciousness will cure one of the material disease. And the impotent process, like a medicine that's not potent, it cannot do it. So people who do not preach this philosophy of Vani, who do not follow Prabhupada's position as bona fide spiritual master are being misled, and that's tens of thousands of people. And I wanted to mention just briefly, I wanted to thank Ambra Endy for volunteering to work on our editorial team as we produce books. And she's somewhere in Texas, and I see her on the screen today, at least I see her photograph. And we want to thank you. We'll be in touch with you to provide some writings that we need edited for our upcoming books. We're doing a book review of the unauthorized biography of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. That's one of the books we're doing. And actually, it's a new part of our program online here, is that during, after our lecture, then I give a short, brief section of responding to Yaśodā, and then he moves forward and goes to this section of the review of this what's called Leelamrita. So it's a new section of our class programming. And Michael, we're not reading right now from the diaries, because my diaries are in Canada. I didn't bring them down. And we're concentrating more on the books that we have. And like I said, when I came here, I was on a mission to assist our godbrother Gopal, who's suffering from cancer, if he was going to depart. And fortunately, I want to announce, as I did yesterday as well, that he survived the operation, a rather serious operation. And they connected his colon, his long and short colon, together. And he's without one of those, Ram Raghava, one of those bags. So hopefully his body of blood, pus, stool, and urine will survive this tragedy. All of us have these problems of different degrees. And if Krishna blesses us, we can carry on, Michael, in spreading Krishna consciousness with this bag of blood. You know, we want to go ahead with the reading of From Easy Journey to Other Planets. I hope you were able to source it, Ram Raghava. Were you? The section that I sent to...
No, I got your pictures. I'm going to try to share them in just a second.
Can you get it? Do you have a version of it?
No, I don't have the original version, but just the pictures
okay.
you sent.
Okay, well, we'll struggle on through it. These books are, when you're only one person, Rochisha, I can barely open the book and photograph it. But it looks like we've got something. The purpose of our Krishna consciousness movement is to propagate this advanced scientific idea to people in general, and the process is very simple. Simply by chanting the holy names of God, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, one cleanses the dirt from his heart and gains understanding that he is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. And that is his duty, is to serve, his duty to serve him. So this is a very succinct explanation of Krishna consciousness from Śrīla Prabhupāda. The process is very pleasant. We chant the Hare Krishna mantra. We dance rhythmically, and we eat nice prasadam. While enjoying this life, Interesting, Prabhupada uses this term, enjoying. So there is happiness in devotional service. Yes, it's not. Actually, discipline doesn't mean misery. It means happiness. Someone would say, well, I spoke to somebody the other day. Well, what do? You don't go out. You don't drink. You do nothing. And are you happy? I said, yes, I'm happy. I don't need those things. They're not necessary for internal understanding of the purpose of life. Actually, they're detrimental. While enjoying this life, we are preparing to enter into the kingdom of God in our next life. Now, someone would say, geez, that's a very ambitious idea, very ambitious program you're after. But the fact of the matter is, all of us are going to get old, we're going to be diseased, and we're going to die. But we don't actually die. All you do is change your body. And here Prabhupada is telling us, you're going to end up at the kingdom of God. It's inconceivable what that means. But we have faith in the words of our spiritual master, Rochisha Devi Dasi, absolute faith in his wishes for us. Krishna reveals himself from within. Here's the key. He reveals himself from within. It's hard to see this book here, it's so small. Krishna, from who is serious about God realization. Both Krishna and the spiritual master help the sincere soul, the bona fide spiritual master. So Dasa Avatar, he's helping us. He's helping us. We're making advancement. The spiritual master is the external manifestation of God, who is situated in everyone's heart as Supersoul. For one who is very serious about understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Supersoul immediately renders assistance by directing him, Vijaya Pandit, by directing him to a bona fide spiritual master. Is that correct? Were you directed to a bona fide spiritual master? Vijaya Pandit was in Italy. Oh, yeah, look at that. And his books he's translating in Italian for distribution. And just before in this way, the spiritual candidate, that's all of you, are being helped from within and without because we follow the correct process. We have the perfect spiritual master, and we have the enthusiasm and determination to carry on and reap the benefits of Krishna consciousness as Prabhupada has guaranteed to us by his transcendental mercy. So this is the purpose of Krishna consciousness. Amazing, huh? Dasa Avatar, what do you think? So amazing. And thank you. Thank you for attending. I love seeing all the people on the screen, and I get an idea to recognize them because it shows Yaśodā-nandana a global presence here. And all of you are the ambassadors of Śrīla Prabhupāda, and you're the ambassadors of truth for all the people in your network because Dasa Avatar, you are a circle of influence. Huh? You are a circle of influence, Vijaya Pandit, Michael Dillon, and all of you take this banner of truth and spread it to other people, and gradually, one by one. It's very interesting. Here shall finish and we'll move on. I'm preaching to a young lady who's a pharmacist, and she has trouble at work with the owners, but the owners don't really know what a good pharmacist she is, because pharmacy, like other businesses, you do it, especially in sales. You collect customers one by one. So when somebody calls up Ram Raghava, the pharmacy, the pharmacist tries to swing that customer over to them, because the doctors are feeding them pharmaceutical products. It's a very big industry. But how does the pharmacy grow its numbers? Because there's so many pharmacies, one customer at a time. And she very expertly, because she's been very successful in that industry, converts that one person over to be a customer of theirs and takes them away from the other pharmacy. So that's our business, one devotee at a time. And in this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, will continue to expand the truth about Prabhupada's Vani incarnation for everyone's benefit. And hopefully this will spread all throughout the world by the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Śrīla Prabhupāda, our spiritual master. We're going to move forward with the chanting of Jaya Radha Madhava by Śrīla Prabhupada, and then our reading and discussion headed up with our dear God brother, His Grace Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu in the snowy mountains of Twain Heart. Hare Krishna.
Sai. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava सदस्यमान भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद से अद्वैत गदाधर शिवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गौ गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। नवद्वीप धाम की जय। स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय। गंगा माई की जय। जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord, Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1:1:1. Narayanam namaskritya Narayanam namaskritya Naram chaiva narottamam Naram chaiva narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyāsam Devim Saraswatim Vyāsam Tato Jayam Mudirayat Tato Jayam Mudirayat. One should utter the means of conquest, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, after offering respectful obeisances, 1, to the personality of Godhead Narayana, 2, to the Narayana Rishi, who is the supermost human being, 3, to the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, then 4, to Śrīla Vyāsa, the author, from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1-4. Welcome everyone to this reading and discussion on Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. It should be noted that this particular session is being conducted on the basis of the original 1962 New Delhi edition, and all synonyms, translations, and purport are by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, Founder-Ācārya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. As we do every week, we will read a few selected verses from the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam itself, which explains the meaning and the benefit of hearing this powerful transcendental literature. This is from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 15 forward. Yadanudyasina yukta karmagranti nibandhanam chindanti kovidastasya kona kuryat kataratim. Intelligent persons do cut off the internet of the knot of reactionary work by remembrance of the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not give attention to his message? Shushrushoho sradhadanasya vasudeva kataruchihi syan mahatsevaya vipra punyatirata nishevanat. O the twice-born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all ranges of vice, a standard of great service is done, and as the result of such great service, affinity in the messages of Vasudeva is made possible. Srinvatam svakata Krishna punyasravana kirtana ridyantasto hyabhadrani vidunoti suritsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is also the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, does cleanse the desire for material enjoyment in the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge for hearing his, Krishna's messages, which are themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nashtaprayeshu vabhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in the Bhagavatam class or rendering service unto the pure devotees, all that is inauspicious in the heart of a candidate becomes destroyed almost to nil, and thus loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, comes into being an irrevocable fact. Tadarajastamo bhava kamalo bhadayaschaye chetaete ranaviddam stitam setve prasidati. As soon as irrevocable loving service is fixed up in one's heart, at that time the effects of the nature's mode of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankerings, etc., do disappear from one's heart, and he becomes fixed up in a mode of goodness, which makes him completely happy. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavat tata vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. Thus, when one is positively fixed up in a mode of unalloyed goodness, the enlivened-minded man affected by contact of devotional service of the Lord can positively know scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. Vidyate hridaya grantis chidyante sarva samshaya kshiyante chasya karmani drishta evatmanishware. The knot of one's heart is thus pierced, and all misgivings are cut into pieces. The chain of fruitive actions are terminated along with the seeing of oneself, the dominating factor. We will proceed with our specific text today. Today we are reading from Canto 1, Chapter 6, text number 27. Evam Krishna mate Brahman asakyasya amalatmanaha kalah praturabhut kale taditso damini yata. Evam, thus, Krishna mate, one who is fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna. Brahman, O Vyasadeva, not, asaktasya, of one who is attached, amalatmanaha, of one who is completely free from all material dirts, kalaha, that, praturabhut, become visible, kale, in the course of time, tadit, lightning, sodamini, illuminating, yata, as it is. Translation by His Divine Grace, Śrīla Prabhupāda. Thus, O Brahman Vyasadeva, in due course of time, I, who was fully absorbed in thinking Krishna, and therefore had no material attachment, having been completely freed from all material dirts, met with that exactly like the lightning, and illumination occurs simultaneously. Purport. To be fully absorbed in the thought of Krishna means clearance of material dirts or hankerings. As a very rich man has no hankerings for small petty things, so also a devotee of Lord Krishna who is guaranteed to pass on to the kingdom of God, where life is eternal, fully cognizant and blissful, has naturally no hankerings for petty material things, which are dolls like shadow of the reality without any permanent value. That is the sign of spiritually enriched persons. And in due course of time, when a pure devotee is completely prepared, all of a sudden the change of body occurs, which is commonly called death. And for the pure devotee, such change takes place exactly like the lightning, and illumination follows simultaneously. That is to say, a devotee simultaneously changes his material body and devolves a spiritual body by the will of the Supreme. Even before that, a pure devotee has no material affection on account of his body being spiritualized like the red-hot iron axe, like fire, in contact with fire. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namah. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhaktivedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shigurave Namah. Bhagavad Vandana Kadyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sharkara Yuktam Kadatehi Visheshatah Adadana Strinam Danteridam Yache Punaha Punaha Srimadrupa Padam Bhoja Dhulisyam Janma Janmani Amsho Bhagavatosmyaham Sadadaso Asmi Saravata Tat Kripa Pikshako Nityam Tat Prishta Sat Karomi Svam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Now we're dealing here with a very important topic which often comes up amongst many devotees, because we are practicing the path of Bhakti Yoga, the sadhana process, or the regulated practice of devotional service, hopefully according to the instruction of Śrīla Prabhupāda, the foremost Acharya of the modern age, the current Acharya of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So therefore the question will come up, well, what will happen at the time of death? Because I've had numerous devotees ask, okay, we are chanting, you are chanting, we're following the Ekadasi, reading the books, chanting Hare Krishna. So are there any examples of devotees who went back to Godhead during Prabhupada's presence, confirmed by Śrīla Prabhupada? Now, those of you who are familiar with our programs will know that we've discussed this before, but we'll bring it up again, the example of Jayananda. What happened with Jayananda, his level of service is literally legendary. His dedication to Śrīla Prabhupada, his sacrifices, and his one-minded focus on serving without any personal desire for name, fame, power, prestige, position, anything. He was completely focused on serving Prabhupada and Krishna. So at the time of death in Los Angeles in 1977, he was listening to the Maha Mantra. And Śrīla Prabhupada in Vrindavan in May, I had the good fortune of being in Prabhupada's room when Śrīla Prabhupada was with his godbrother O.B.L. Kapoor. O.B.L. Kapoor was a direct disciple of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And every time that Śrīla Prabhupada would come to Vrindavan, they would get together. They would have very friendly discussion in English, Sanskrit, Hindi. This O.B.L. Kapoor was a big scholar of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So what happened, they were having a discussion about Jayananda. They started speaking in Hindi and mixed with English. And at one point, Prabhupada said that Jayananda went back to Godhead. And Prabhupada quoted that verse from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text number 9, Janma karma chame divyam, evam yoveti tatvataha, tyaktva deham punara janma, Naitimam episo Arjuna. Basically, this verse tells us that for one who knows the nature of my activities and transcendental lila, at the time of death, he goes back to God. He doesn't have to come back here. And as Prabhupada recited this verse, he started to cry, and he confirmed that Jayananda went back to Godhead. So this was a confirmation by Śrīla Prabhupāda that his dear disciple Jayananda went back to Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan. And then there was another devotee named Sudama. Sudama Maharaj was an African-American devotee who joined the movement 1968, very good kirtan leader, very nice devotee. So what happened with him in 1970, he was in Los Angeles. I heard this story directly from Sudama when he lived at my premises in Badger, California, before his departure in 1994. What happened is Prabhupada wanted somebody to go to Japan and open the movement there. So he requested one of his personal servants to go to Japan and start. And the personal servant told Śrīla Prabhupada, I would rather stay here in Los Angeles with you, Prabhupada, or do service over here. But Prabhupada said, that is all right. And when Sudama heard that Prabhupada was looking for someone to volunteer to go to Japan to start the movement, he went to Śrīla Prabhupada and told him, oh, Prabhupada, I'll go to Japan and open the movement. So he went and told that to Śrīla Prabhupada. And the day that Śrīla Prabhupada the day that Sudama was getting ready to go to the airport to go to Tokyo, Japan, he went to see Śrīla Prabhupada and paid his obeisances. And Prabhupada personally embraced him and told him, for you to volunteer to go to Japan to start the movement, at the time of your death, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself will personally come and bring you back to Godhead. So that is another confirmed story that Śrīla Prabhupada blessed that devotee. And in 1994, Sudama departed in Los Angeles. He was surrounded with devotee, Ganges water on his head, Tulsi, hearing the Maha Mantra, very similar situation to Jayananda. So this is a confirmation. But the point that we're dealing with here is that in the Bhagavad Gita itself, there is numerous description of what happens to a devotee once they leave the body, especially if one remembers Krishna. That this is very important, because many times I hear devotee, oh, I don't think I'm going to make it back to God in this lifetime or that lifetime. But let's focus on what happened if one does remember Krishna at the time of death. I want to refer back to that verse on chapter 4, text number 9. I don't know if you can pull it up, Ram Raghava, but I'll read from the text itself. The word is Janma Karma Chame Divyam. It's on page 227 in the original book. The translation is, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Prabhupada explains in the purport, the Lord's descent from his transcendental abode is already explained in the 6th verse. One who can understand the truth of the appearance of the personality of Godhead is already liberated from material bondage, and therefore he returns to the kingdom of God immediately after quitting this present material body. Such liberation of the living entity from material bondage is not at all easy. The impersonalists and the yogis attain liberation only after much trouble and many, many births. Even then, the liberation they achieve, merging into the impersonal Brahmajyoti, oh, very nice. Merging into, further down, a little further down, okay. Impersonal Brahmajyoti of the low, a little bit up, okay, is only partial, and there is the risk of returning again to this material world. But the devotee Simply by understanding the transcendental nature of the body and activities of the Lord, attains the abode of the Lord after ending this body, and does not run the risk of returning again to this material world. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that the Lord has many, many forms and incarnations. Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam. Although there are many transcendental forms of the Lord, they are still one and the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. One has to understand this fact with conviction, although it is incomprehensible to mundane scholars and empiric philosophers. As stated in the Vedas, Eko Devo Nitya Lila Nuraktu Bhaktavya Piridyantaratma. The one Supreme Personality of Godhead is eternally engaged in many, many transcendental forms and relationships with his unalloyed devotees. This Vedic version is confirmed in this verse of the Gita, personally by the Lord. He who accepts this truth on the strength of the authority of the Vedas and of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who does not waste his time in philosophical speculations, attains the highest perfectional stage of liberation. Simply by accepting this truth on faith, one can without a doubt attain liberation. The Vedic version, Tattvamasi, is actually applied in this case. Anyone who understands Lord Krishna to be the Supreme, or who says unto the Lord, you are the same Supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead, is certainly liberated instantly, and consequently his entrance into the transcendental association of the Lord is guaranteed. In other words, such a faithful devotee of the Lord attains perfection, and this is confirmed by the following Vedic assertion. Now, what's interesting about this Sanskrit quotation here, this is from the Purusha Sukta, which is considered one of the topmost Vedic hymns describing the creation of the material world and how one becomes liberated. And it says, Kameva vititva timrityometi nanyapanta vidyate ayanaya. One can attain the perfect stage of liberation from birth and death simply by knowing the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no alternative, because anyone who does not understand Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is surely in the mode of ignorance. Consequently, he will not attain salvation, simply, so to speak, by licking the outer surface of the bottle of honey, or by interpreting the Bhagavad Gita according to mundane scholarship. So the point here of reading this is a very important text. Prabhupada used to often quote this verse in relationship with the practice of devotional service. And this is confirmed. Prabhupada quotes that Vedic verse there from the Purusha Sukta, which explains that by hearing, by understanding the position of Krishna, one becomes freed from the miseries of this world. Now, sometimes in India, people say, oh, I know Krishna, he was born in Mathura, he did this, he did that, he danced with the gopis. But they do not engage in the service of Krishna. When Prabhupada said that one who understands the nature of his activities, that also means to engage in the loving service of Krishna, not just some mental speculation. Because we see in the same Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 7, text number 19, Bahunam Janmanamante, Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, Samahatma Sudurlabaha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. It's interesting, in 1960 or so, Prabhupada was having a discussion, an exchange of correspondence with one Dr. Stahl, and he pointed out in this correspondence that all these devotees who joined the Krishna Consciousness movement, he quoted that verse, are all great souls. because they're surrendered to Krishna and engaged in the service of Krishna. So this is very important. Of course, in America, we don't have the level of Mayavadi infiltration like they have in places like South India and other places in India. But this Mayavadi philosophy is everywhere in various forms. That is why we are personalists. We accept the position of Krishna, the understanding that by chanting the name of Krishna, one will go back to Krishna. It's interesting to note that Śrīla Prabhupāda, whenever he was explaining the meaning of the Maha Mantra and the meaning of Krishna, we used to often quote this verse from the Padma Purana, where it describes Abhinatvam Nama Naminaha. There's Nama, the name of Krishna, and Nami, the person Krishna. Abhinna means in Sanskrit non-different. In other words, the name of Krishna and the person of Krishna are non-different. This is very important because there are so many different commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, and Prabhupada many times pointed out that many impersonalist interpreters will interpret that the person in the Bhagavad Gita speaking Krishna, he is not the Supreme Brahman. But in the Bhagavad Gita itself, Arjuna says, Param Brahma Param Dhamma Pavitram Paramam Bhavan, that you are the Supreme Brahman, you are the Supreme Pure. And this is confirmed in all the Vedic literatures. Even in the Vishnu Sahasranam, Prabhupada quotes in the second canto of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that one of Krishna's name, Pavitram, means pure, supremely pure. In the Upanishad, we see Apapavidam, that the Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is not affected by any of the contamination of the material world. And this is very interesting. When we were in South India with Achyutananda, we went and visited one ashram of some big impersonalist guru in India. He's one of the biggest Shankaracharyas in India. And what happened is we went upstairs to see the senior Swami, and Achyutananda started to quote him some Sanskrit verses. So immediately he sent one of his assistants. He says, you go downstairs, you can speak to the junior Swami. And we did not know at the time that the junior Swami was receiving some lessons from one of the biggest pandits in India, who was training many of these big Shankaracharyas in their impersonalist philosophy. So we went downstairs, and this junior Swami comes out. He sits on his big seat, and the pandit comes out. So Achyutananda immediately, he gave me an elbow in the ribs. He says, you watch this. And he starts, within about 5 minutes, he quoted him a few verses, and the person was totally stunned, this pandit, how this Westerner, this white-skinned, they consider mlechas, who are not qualified to be Brahmins, how he's able to quote this Sanskrit and bring up all these arguments. And Achyutananda quoted one of the verses from His Upanishad, where it's described, Apapavidam, that Krishna is not contaminated by anything. Another place, Satya Pihitam Mukham, the word Mukham means face, that the Supreme Brahman has a face, he has a form directly. Then he quoted the example from the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam of Shukadev Goswami, who was in the womb of his mother, and when he heard the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam from his father Vyāsa, he came out. And the whole Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the description of the activities of Krishna, the personality of Krishna. So in this way, the Pandit was somewhat stunned that this, according to them, this Mlecha Westerner was able to quote him so many Sanskrit verses and defeat his ideas. But the point is, while all of this, that when we deal with the name of Krishna, this is non-different than the personality of Godhead Krishna. There are so many references from Prabhupada's books and also from the teachings of the Acharya, specifically in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, written, compiled by Gopal Bhatta Goswami and commented upon by Srila Sanatan Goswami. There's a section in that book where it is explained. It's called Nam Mahatmya, the glorification of the name of Krishna, where they quote so many different references from various Vedic literatures, from the Vedas, the Puranas, the Samhitas, so many places explaining the glory and the potency of the name of Krishna. Śrīla Prabhupada does the same thing in his books. Now, it's important to understand, because the issue often comes up about devotees who go to other books besides Śrīla Prabhupada's books. It's proliferated everywhere. But Prabhupada, many times, when he dealt with this question, whether it's acceptable to read other Acharya's book, he said, yes, it is bona fide to read the other Vaishnava Acharya's book. But the problem we have is many of our devotees do not even completely read our books, namely Śrīla Prabhupada's books. First, they should study, read, and then carefully study Śrīla Prabhupada's books, Śrīla Prabhupada's conversations, the 39-volume of Prabhupada's discussions from the Bhaktivedanta archives. Then there's the compilation of all the lectures from Śrīla Prabhupada on Bhagavad Gita, all the lectures from Śrīla Prabhupada on Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and so many different literatures that Prabhupada has written. First, they should study this, read, and then carefully study, and then people can talk about going to other literatures. Because what we see is this artificial attempt of people jumping like sahajiyas to other confidential literatures, and now then the preaching diminishes. There's an interesting story that Prabhupada relates, how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada went to his father, Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, and asked him whether or not he could publish the Govinda Lilamrita. Govinda Lilamrita was a book that was written by Krishnadas Kaviraj. It is a highly advanced book describing Krishna's pastimes with the gopis, the activities of Krishna 24 hours a day. And Prabhupada said that Bhaktivedanta Thakur replied to Bhaktisiddhanta, yes, you can print, but you can print only one copy. Well, one copy means just for yourself. But why did he say that? Because this is not meant for public distribution. But sometimes the argument may be that Prabhupada gave the Krishna book, in which the entire pastimes of the Rasa Lila, Krishna's activity with the gopis, is given. But if you read the Krishna book carefully, you will see that Prabhupada gives purports of how to understand the Krishna book, how to understand Krishna's activities. I've personally seen online where sometimes some so-called pundits or critics from other religious denominations will criticize Krishna and say, oh, Krishna had 16,000 wives. Well, first of all, it was 16,108. But they do not understand or know the actual meaning of Krishna taking these wives. They do not know the story. They do not hear the Bhagavatam from a self-realized soul. We've often discussed as part of our programs how during the lifetime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, no one could come and directly see Lord Chaitanya and present any literatures for his approval or poetry. So one poet went to Swarup Damodar Goswami and wanted to have his poetry reviewed by Swarup Damodar. Swarup Damodar told him, Bhagavata Paragya Bhagavata Stani, that in order to understand the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, you have to go to the person Bhagavatam, the pure devotee Bhagavata. This is very important because one cannot bypass the process. There is no specific silver bullet to bypass the process. The process of bhakti means to approach a pure devotee, bhakta, Shuddha Bhakta, a self-realized soul. And this is very important, very important. So those devotees who attempt to bypass the current acharya, it's like recently somebody sent me a note to go to such and such website claiming that one of Prabhupada's godbrother was explaining something. So I very carefully went there and I noticed the way they were talking about our Śrīla Prabhupada. They did not call him Śrīla Prabhupada. They call him Śrīla Swami Maharaj. And we say, no, this is not acceptable. Śrīla Prabhupada, on account of his accomplishment, should be regarded as the foremost Acharya in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, current Acharya, because of his accomplishments, because of his writing, because of his Vani incarnation, because he fulfilled the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it is simply a symptom of resentment and envy of those people who refuse to address Śrīla Prabhupada as Śrīla Prabhupada. Instead, they just call him Śrīla Swami Maharaj. Well, there's a lot of Maharajas and Swami Maharaj all over the place, and we mean no disrespect to any of them. But His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, that title was given by his disciples on account of his accomplishment and fulfilling the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much. And from all of us, thank you very much for taking us back in time. Really, it's a great opportunity for all of us, Dharma Bhavana, to hear Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu speak about his pastimes in India, preaching. And I know, Rama Raghava, you were also in Vrindavan when Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu was the headmaster at the school there, and you had an opportunity to be a student back then. Your parents were so pious that they made that arrangement for you to be there for some time and learn from Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu Krishna Consciousness. And when Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu speaks, like today, it took me back in time, especially when he mentioned about Achyutananda and in South India together. Prabhu, I remember so much going to Mayapur and hearing him chant. And he was a glorious devotee back then. The things change, of course, but nonetheless, back then it was wonderful. He had gone to India under Prabhupada's order. He learned how to speak the language. And he was recognized as a very expert scholar in our philosophy and an expert chanter, beautifully. And if you, all of you, get a chance to source those famous early tapes of him chanting, you'll be able to capture the mood back then, the Sankirtan movement, how it was growing back in the early days of Prabhupada's mission, and how we were all inspired, so inspired, even though we really didn't know much. Still, the inspiration was there to take up the process. And it's interesting to note, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, you spoke about Jayananda Prabhu, and we've all discussed it over our many classes in the last two and a half years. I think we have 2,000 hours of content online, so all of you can go to these previous classes and refer to them and hear. It's changing as we move along. But Jayananda Prabhu was a great, great example, Dasa Avatar, a great example of how one should execute devotional service. And one thing that he was exemplary in was his selfless service. That's what he thrived on. He wasn't one to be put up in the temple as the great lecturer to give the class. He was very shy in that way. He was not aggressive in terms of being known as a great devotee. He would humbly serve. He gave money to Prabhupada, his inheritance. He gave all the money to Śrīla Prabhupada for printing books. And he worked tirelessly as a devotee to develop the Rath Yatra program. And it is interesting to note that in 1976, although he was beginning to suffer from cancer, he was in New York preparing the carts for that particular festival. And that was a big job back then. Actually, we in Toronto, under the inspiration of one of our members, Devi Deva, who's in Philadelphia now, came up with the idea of a traveling Rath Yatra program, not Festival of India, traveling Rath Yatra. And what it was is we wanted to build a permanent set of carts. I believe there was a devotee, Rochisha Devi Dasi, in Montreal that was very expert at construction. I can't remember his name. But he designed a system to build carts that would be, you could assemble and disassemble and move from city to city, so that each temple wasn't responsible for building a cart for their Rath Yatra, because that's a lot of money. And it took real expertise. So we, in Toronto, with our group, Vatsal and Charu, and they came from America, and Devi Deva. But the person that was guiding us was Jayananda. Yes. And I can remember having the opportunity to speak to him on the phone. I can still see myself sitting in my office there. And my friend Devi Deva gave me the phone, and I got a chance to say Hare Krishna to him. And he was in his wheelchair then. And he was giving some inspiration and guidance. One particular devotee that worked with me in Toronto, Murli Krishna, and Yaśodā knows him. When he joined the movement, he was a dynamo devotee. When we had kirtans, he led the dancing. He led the chanting. He was a guy that always was first to get up and do service. And he was inspired from Jayananda Prabhu because he worked on the carts in New York with Jayananda to produce this festival. And he was inspired by Jayananda's selfless service. It wasn't, he was a big scholar. No. It wasn't that he was a big kirtan leader, Dharma Bhavana. No. What was his position? He was the servant of the servant of the servant of Śrīla Prabhupāda. That was his role. And because of that, he went back home, back to Godhead. So you don't have to be any kind of fancy devotee. No. You just have to be surrendered and simple. And it's interesting to note, Yaśodā-nandana, and I'm going to bring this up, because this isn't a political talk here, like some people were sending me notes. I hear you're supporting Donald Trump. No. We are the disciples of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, and we're not Ritviks, by the way, please. That's in a very derogative term, because Ritvik is not a person, it's a system. And remember that. If you want to be initiated, the Ritvik system is how you become a Prabhupada disciple, and that's who we are. But what happened when Jayananda was in New York, and I know we've heard, some of you are new on the program, so I'm going to tell you this story. Jayananda was having problems to procure a spot to build the carts in New York, and he couldn't find one. And he searched all over, and he came upon an open lot, and it happened to be owned by Donald Trump. Yeah. So the devotees went to the office of Donald Trump and requested permission to use that space to build the Rath Yatra carts. Very important. Because devotional service, everyone, is inexhaustible. Understand that. You always benefit from devotional service. no matter when and where and how, once you start the process, it eternally assists you in your journey back home, back to Godhead. Eternally. There is no loss or diminution on this path of devotional service. So Donald Trump was approached and they asked him, can they use, the Krishna people, use that lot for building the carts? And he gave them permission to do it, no charge. And then also, they sent prasadam to him from the New York Temple. And this was direct service for Śrīla Prabhupāda, who was, and I went to that festival, by the way. I was another person in the crowd. I went to that festival. I saw Prabhupada on the cart. It was glorious. And Jayananda leading it with pulling the string, the rope at the front. And that was his last festival, by the way. But nonetheless, there was a great opportunity for everybody and for Mr. Trump to get the blessings of Lord Chaitanya and Śrīla Prabhupāda. And somehow or other, he's moved into this role in America, and he's doing what he can. But we're not supporters of Donald Trump. We're not supporters of the Dems. We're not supporters of the liberals or the NDP or whatever party there is. We are Prabhupada disciples. Remember that, everyone. That's our business. Do not become bewildered by this material world of names. Prabhupada referred to it, the world of names. So many different names, this name, that name, this name, that name. In the flames of time, these names come and go. The material body comes and goes. And I wanted to mention just quickly, it's so relevant here in Yotapek with Gopal Prabhu. I came here to watch him in his journey and his dealing with disease. And it brings about a real deep realization of the temporary nature of life and how quickly it moves forward and how important this process, this science of Krishna consciousness can help everyone get out of this entanglement of repeated birth and death. But people forget. Yes, they do. In fact, if you're not on a steady diet of hearing in association with devotees, you will fall down and float into the world of Maya. Yes, you will. Nasta prayeshu abradeshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class and hearing this philosophy, all that is inauspicious within the heart of the candidate becomes destroyed almost to nil, and thus loving service unto the personality of Godhead becomes established as an irrevocable fact. This is a science. This is not mental speculation. This is not dharma bhavana. This is not mental concoction. So many people concoct philosophy. Oh, yes, that's a fact. I call it the International Society of Opinionators. Everybody has an opinion. This opinion, that opinion. And then they challenge us. Hey, do you think you're the top group? No, we don't. Top, bottom, in between. It's not about what is the top group. It's about people who have surrendered to the science of Krishna consciousness by hearing the philosophy of Krishna consciousness from Śrīla Prabhupāda in his unadulterated books. Yes, it is a science. The word "scio" in Latin means to know. So it's important, science. is to know the truth. What is the truth? That Prabhupada lives in his Vani incarnation. He's alive. He reasons ill that thinks that Vaishnavas die. That is not correct. And that is bogus philosophy of so many other people. And of course, this is going on, misinformation. We've talked about this. In fact, everything in the Kali Yuga right now is misinformation, especially with all of this social media. It's like a nightmare because you can become obsessed with social media and you go, or YouTube, one of our God brothers, I'm not going to mention his name, he's forever wandering around on YouTube. And he's obsessed. Oh, did you see this video, Vishwa, of this scientist? Did you see this video of this philosopher? What did you think about this person, that person? And I try to tell him, forget it. Forget it. You're in an ocean of confusion, my friend. There's billions and billions of videos, billions and billions of opinionators. Concentrate. Concentrate your mind, stupid, on what's valuable in your life, because death can come at any moment. And he already almost died some years ago. He had an organ transplant. He revived, and he's healthy and he's active. He's a good devotee, don't get me wrong. But the mind, it's hard. Seeing it here, it's hard for a leopard to change its spots. Don't think that just if you get the notice that you're about to die, that you're going to change. No. That's my experience. You don't just change automatically. What you have to do is stay steady every day, like Jayananda Prabhu. Be like him. Stay steady. Don't worry about scholarship. Don't worry about anything else. Stay steady with your rounds. Stay steady with offering prasadam. Stay steady with studying the books. Stay steady in coming to these classes and propagate other people to join us, because I guarantee it, they will not be disappointed. And if they do leave, it's because they're not ready, and that's their business. Anyway, as you know, we could all go on and speak about Krishna consciousness with enthusiasm. But we want to go back to Yaśodā-nandana and his review of the history, the bio of Śrīla Prabhupāda, the, could I say, unauthorized bio of Śrīla Prabhupāda, which is also known as the Leelamrita Dharma Bhavana, and let him read from it and get an insight how Prabhupada was not simply an ordinary man, how he was portrayed in the writing of this book by other people. All glories to the Sankirtan movement. Yaśodā-nandana, please.
Thank you for that. We are reading from the Leelamrita Review on page number 9, continuing our analysis. Page number 9 at the top. Dhruva Maharaj was so advanced that he only took one breath of air every 12 days, and his strength and happiness increased immeasurably. In transcendental ecstasy, Raghunath Goswami ate one slice of butter every alternate day. Queen Kunti fasted without inconvenience for 30 days. Because he was on the same transcendental platform as these great souls, Śrīla Prabhupada could not have suffered a starving condition. What to speak of Śrīla Prabhupada, who is the greatest yogi? Even mystic yogis who are still siddhi kami can live without food and not suffer the pangs of starvation. It appears that even if a yogi does not drink even a drop of water he can live for many, many years. From Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 3, Text 18 and 19. Śrīla Prabhupāda had no material drives, and therefore he was never victimized by hunger or any other law of material nature. Quote from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 15, Text 18. A true Brahmana is always satisfied. Even if he has nothing to eat, he can drink a little water and he'd be satisfied. A devotee is always satisfied because he feels the presence of the super soul within his heart and thinks of him 24 hours a day. A devotee is never driven by the dictations of the tongue and genitals, and thus he is never victimized by the laws of material nature. The Lilamrita claims that Śrīla Prabhupada suffered the affliction and great inconvenience of disease, seasickness, and ill health. From the Lilamrita, Book 1, page 18-19. When Abhay was 15, he was afflicted with beriberi, and his mother, who was also stricken, regularly had to rub a powder of calcium chloride on his legs to reduce the swelling. Abhay soon recovered. From Lilamrita, Book 1, page 18-19. From Lilamrita, Book 1, page 287, he was not in strong health. From Lilamrita, Book number 2, page number 5, externally, Śrīla Prabhupada was experiencing great inconvenience. He had been aboard a ship for a month and had suffered heart attacks and repeated seasicknesses. From Lilamrita, Book number 2, page 7, he had barely survived 2 heart attacks at sea. However, Śrīla Prabhupada writes, one may argue that we may see a person who is spiritually engaged 24 hours a day, but is still suffering from disease. In fact, however, he's neither suffering nor diseased. Otherwise, he could not be engaged 24 hours a day in spiritual activities. Therefore, one who is situated in the spiritual status of life is unaffected by any superficial dirty things. This is from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 4, Text 20. Next, from the same verse, the spiritual master Acharya is always situated in the spiritual status of life. Birth, death, disease, and old age do not affect him. Then we have from the Adilita of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chapter 9, Text 11. If the spiritual master appears to be diseased or invalid, it is for our benefit and not due to personal mundane imperfection. A Vaishnava is always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But if he appears to be an invalid, that gives a chance to his disciples to serve him. The Lilamrita speculates that Śrīla Prabhupada had imperfect senses. From the Lilamrita, Book number 1, Book number 2, page 43. That morning, Śrīla Prabhupada, who had perhaps never seen snow, woke and thought that someone had whitewashed the side of the building next door. Not until he went outside did he discover that it was snow. And we will continue this on Wednesday next week during our Chaitanya Charitamrita reading. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Yes, and thank you very much. And for all of our members, know that we are planning to release this particular book in a version from our group, a review of the unauthorized biography of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, being with our senior editor, Yaśodā-nandana, compiling it. So it'll be a good book. And also in the book, so all of you know, we're going to have a few opening chapters. Those are included in all of the books that we're working on Guru Tattva, the proper understanding of Guru Tattva. Before you enter into reading, we're going to have a brief explanation, a bio explanation of who Śrīla Prabhupada is. And we're going to have a section on the Vani incarnation, a proper understanding, so people get this background before they enter into reading this review of what is also known as the Lilamrita, this so-called book that was presented by someone else and really missed the point on who Śrīla Prabhupada is and how he still lives in sound with all of us. Now we're going to go ahead. Now, if you want to participate, if you want to donate for this publication, we're going to be putting up a GoFundMe in the future to support these new books and the printing of them. But that's step by step. We still got things to finish from the past, which we are doing. Ram Raghava, I see you have your hand up. You have a question for Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, I had a question for Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, but first of all, I'd like to take a minute to thank you and Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu for presenting this important platform with the great association, and also for training the younger generation to carry on the mission of Śrīla Prabhupada, like Rupa Goswami Prabhu. His contribution is amazing. Also, for the pleasure of the assembled devotees, I'd like to let you know that YouTube live streaming is going on. Not as many people watching today, but it's always there, and no questions so far. Welcome to everybody for attending. There are some newcomers also. The question for Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu is in the first reference of Bhagavad Gita that you read, it was mentioned about the importance of faith. So I was wondering if you could please expound on the importance of faith versus, because generally people are trained nowadays to understand things through direct perception. So what part does faith play in understanding Krishna consciousness and also getting the knowledge?
In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's description of the meaning of the word faith. It is described that this means to believe in something that is sublime. Now, as far as our philosophy is concerned, there's basic fundamental axiomatic truths or basic fundamental truths which we are presented and accept. And a lot of this may have to do with one's previous life in a previous body, that Prabhupada explains in the Nectar of Devotion, that usually people cannot take to this process of bhakti unless they've done this in a previous life. Now, there was a very interesting exchange when Madhurvisa Swami, the late Madhurvisa Swami, asked Śrīla Prabhupada about this exact statement from the Nectar of Devotion. And this devotee told Prabhupada, well, Prabhupada, you know, in my case, I don't recall any activities before I met you where I would deserve to do this, where I would deserve to have the chance to render devotional service. And Prabhupada explained to him, I said, well, in this case, it is called causeless mercy. Prabhupada says causeless mercy means something that is given to you, that is bestowed to you, although technically you don't deserve it. So there's different factors why somebody has faith and somebody does not. But the point is that this point about faith, this is the beginning of bhakti. And this is confirmed by Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion. It says, Ado Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sango. Before one gets the chance to associate with devotees, he has to have a little bit of faith. And Prabhupada many times explained that you have to have faith one way or the other. If you're trying to go, for example, take a plane to Romania, you may never have been there. You don't know from practical experience, from practical empiric evidence, but you have to have faith because you hear that other people have done it. You say, okay, I'll go, and you end up in Romania from whatever. So it's the same thing. The process of bhakti has been experienced and proven by great acharyas, by great transcendental professors, great authorities, who have done this for thousands and thousands, millions of years. And the writings of these acharyas give us the guidance of how to practice this process. And that faith is increased by the association of devotees. And also faith also comes from previous, called punya sukriti. Sukriti means pious devotional activities from the past. Let me give an example in my personal life. Something I didn't know. My mother, for many years, when I became a devotee or aspiring devotee in 1969, she used to make kurtas for devotees. And she used to send packages and gifts for devotees. So after she departed, I didn't realize this. My sister told me that every night she had a set of beads and she had a picture of Prabhupada. Every night she would do some knitting. And she would keep a picture of Śrīla Prabhupada near her little chair there, and she would chant one round. And I didn't know this until many years after she departed, and my sister told me. Now, she met Prabhupada. I don't think she ever met Śrīla Prabhupada, but she had the faith. She saw pictures of Prabhupada one time. She didn't know English. She couldn't speak English. She only knew French. This person, she said, Prabhupada is a great prophet. Great prophet. And she had that faith that simply by doing some service to the devotees, now in the next life, that will result in something positive. So faith comes from pious activities, from good association, and basically by good fortune. There's a lot of different factors. That's what I can say for now. Hare Krishna. I hope
Thank you very much. Actually, that was a great story about your mother. I had the same situation in Toronto. I joined the movement, and my father was really upset because my mother had died, and he wanted me to finish my degree at Guelph. I was in third year, and I joined the temple. But he was a carpenter, and I got him to come to the Toronto temple and do some carpentry work for the altars there before his departure. So devotional service is inexhaustible, and we can all share that opportunity with everyone if we use our intelligence and engage others carefully in devotional service. Get them to chant Hare Krishna. Get them to take prasadam. Trick them in any way that you can, but give them Krishna consciousness. And Krishna Katha, we're going to call upon you to speak for a few minutes on your understanding of the philosophy as you learned it today at the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class.
Hare Krishna, Jai Prabhus, all glories to Śrīla Prabhupada and to your services that are so glorious and makes him happy, and we love his wonderful smile. So naturally in today's verse, we again see in depth, and not by accident, but Prabhupada is describing the great acharyas in our disciplic line, and it perfectly describes himself. And because he is the topmost humble servant of the servant by example, he of course never mentions his name. And just like Yaśodā-nandana many classes back said, we are aspiring bhaktas. We don't claim to be devotees or this or that. We are aspiring because that is our position. We were not born in a Vaishnava family like Prabhupada is. And so when it comes to developing our attraction for service and love of God, love of Krishna, then there's so many wonderful paths all on the same path. In other words, let me explain. So it's one path, Bhakti Yoga path, that Prabhupada has nicely laid out for us, right? This is a system. And we all want results on that path. Like if you're hiking, you want to see the view of the beautiful mountain and the lake, right? You want to get there. So there's some struggle. There's some tapasya, there's sacrifice. So you have to do the work. And then you see it. But there's so many wonderful trails that Prabhupada has chalked out, and developing faith is one of them. So how to develop it, like Yaśodā was just explaining, is you have to go introspective. You have to know what your qualities are intrinsically, like you are good at these qualities, whatever they are, X, Y, Z. Develop them not only sincerely, but completely. Because if you push yourself and become, for example, let's say like when in my work, I have to practice compassion, tolerance, patience, empathy. Now, these are things that kind of come naturally to me, but I had to develop them better. I had to learn from others how to be a more compassionate person, have more genuine empathy. And by pushing myself to develop those qualities better, these are spiritual qualities that exist in the spiritual world. Śrīla Prabhupāda exemplified these qualities. So whatever qualities that you already have and that you're in your work, right, in your job or your workplace or in your family, develop those qualities to the most you can, and you'll see the result. You'll see that view of the lake. And that will give you the realization that Krishna is the doer, not us, not you, not me. That is one of the same, it's part of the same trail that brings us to that realization, but it's a unique part of it, right? And so the same thing, how do you become attracted to the holy name as being Krishna dancing on your tongue? So with intention, because so much of us, so many times, and I'm as messed up with it in my past, but lately I've been giving it a real sincere effort and being intentional about each sound, each syllable, and pronunciation and hearing, and trying to kick out all the noise, all the distraction of, whatever is going on in my life. And when you really do hear clearly, without, even if it's just for one complete mantra, you're given that view. You're shown just how Krishna really is advented in his sound incarnation. Just like when you really serve Śrīla Prabhupada nicely and you're fully engaged, you realize he is non-different than Super Soul. And so the compass that we all have and that we need to remind ourselves every day is our compass directs us towards what is pleasing to Śrīla Prabhupada. What I do next, is that pleasing to Śrīla Prabhupada? What I say next, what I eat next, how I behave next, is that pleasing to Śrīla Prabhupada? That's our compass, because we want to get to that view, that result. And so when you develop faith, like Yaśodā-nandana said, some of it comes from our past lives, but it can be developed in this life. And it's not necessarily, because it is subtle. It is a subtle thing. You have to base it in Shastra and base it in Śrīla Prabhupada's personal example, Jayananda's personal example. So by hearing of Achyutananda, just leveling these so-called Brahmins, this helps us with our faith, because our philosophy is our connection to develop our faith. And our philosophy is perfect, whole, and complete. There's no flaw. There's no point where you go, wait a minute. No. Every single imaginable question you could ever come up with in your mind is answered in the Vedas, and especially in the books that Śrīla Prabhupada specifically translated to fast track us on that path to self-realization, to get us as far along in self-realization, in God realization and love of God, in the Bhakti Yoga highest system as fast as possible. This is an incredible position that Prabhupada is in. His intimate relationship with his spiritual master and up the disciplic line all the way to Krishna is Nitya Leela. It's the highest. And if you ever just can grasp the blessing, and again, to develop that faith, you have to, even if it's artificial in the beginning, you have to show gratitude. You have to try to live in gratitude and be grateful for everything that you have right now. Even if what you have right now isn't so wanted, you still have to be grateful for it, because that is a test of your tolerance and your faith. So be grateful, live in gratitude, and articulate the holy name very clearly, and you will understand Krishna literally is dancing on your tongue, just like Prabhupada has told us is so. And that is having faith. Hare Krishna, thank you for letting me speak, Prabhus. All glories to your services.
All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda, and march on, Krishna Katha. March on in your service. He got a scanner, Ram Raghava, really expensive one, and it's to help us with our books. I wanted to read one last section before we end the program that Yaśodā has posted on the chats. Guru means a bona fide guru. That's A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda. So make the distinction between bogus guru and genuine guru. This is very important for us to understand, so that when we are associating with these bogus gurus in ISKCON, we know that they have not reached this platform that Prabhupada describes. That guru means one who has complete knowledge of the Vedic version. And not only that, he is a staunch or fixed up devotee of the Supreme Lord. These are the qualifications. The bona fide guru strictly follows the Vedic injunctions and teaches the same things to his disciple. That is guru. So first thing is, one must be inquisitive, that's us, to understand about the spiritual subject matter. Just like you have come here in this temple, you know that here nothing like political meeting is going on. Yes. Here something spiritual matter is being discussed. Therefore, you have come, this inclination is the beginning of spiritual life. This is called Shraddha. Shraddha means faith. So much information today at the program, and we'll be back next Wednesday, okay? And everybody, please mark it in your calendar. We'll send you the email. We have over 1,500, I believe, Ram Raghava. How many subscribers do we have on our channel? Do you know? Do you have it there?
I don't know the exact number, but it's over 1,500.
Okay, so it's gradually growing. I'm always impetuous. I want more, but what can you do, eh, Michael? Just step by step, back to home, back to Godhead, bead by bead, samosa by samosa, kirtan by kirtan. We go back home, back to Godhead by this practice of the science of Krishna consciousness. We're going to move forward with the chanting of Hare Krishna, 2 minutes and 54 seconds of Śrīla Prabhupāda in his ecstatic singing of the Hare Krishna mantra. Please join along, and we look forward to seeing you all next Wednesday night. Hare Krishna, all glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Let us offer our respectful obeisances to all the assembled Vaishnava devotees. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances. We all offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and who are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Thanks, everybody, for participating in this lively reading and discussion. Our good friend Vishwakarma Prabhu in Yautepec, Mexico, Rochisa Mataji in Montreal, Canada, where they have a lot more snow than Twin Heart, Krishna Kata from San Diego, California, Vijay Pandit from Italy, Comeva Prabhu, Comeva, molto bene, molto bene. And we have our good friend Bhaktin Amber Eddy from Texas. I don't know exactly what city in Texas, but you're always welcome. And Rupa Goswami Prabhu in Mumbai, India. Joe Felicia in Hamilton, Ontario, and everybody participating in the program. Thank you for participating, and please come on Wednesday night for the new day of the Chaitanya Charitam reading at 5:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, corresponding to 8:00 Eastern Coast, Florida time, Montreal time. And please stay for the participating of their lively chanting of Hare Krishna with devotees from Jamaica. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama.